Good morning, students. In the previous video we had dealt with intestinal obstruction, where we have read fully about what is intestinal obstruction, what are the things like how it is caused, what are the signs and symptoms of this intestinal obstruction, completely about the intestinal obstruction we have completely studied, completely discussed in that video, where I think you would have seen the video and would have taken down the notes also. So now we'll continue with the class. So in today's class I will be dealing with Hirschsprung's disease. So what is this Hirschsprung's disease? So Hirschsprung's disease, it is also called as congenital aganglionic megacolon. Okay, so it is also called as congenital aganglionic megacolon. So this is usually a condition in which the rectum and the part of colon fails to develop normally. Okay, it is a condition in which the rectum and the part of colon fails to develop normally. So due to this, what happened, there is accumulation of feces in the colon. Okay, there is accumulation of feces in the colon following birth. So that is what happens. So in this class we'll be dealing about the next topic, that is Hirschsprung's disease. So what is this Hirschsprung's disease? So Hirschsprung's disease, it is also known as congenital aganglionic megacolon. Okay, it is also known as congenital aganglionic megacolon. So it is a condition in which the rectum and the part of colon fails to develop normally. Okay, it is a condition in which rectum as well as a part of colon fails to develop normally. That usually leads to accumulation of feces in the colon following birth. So this is usually definition of this. So it is usually in which rectum as well as a part of colon fails to develop. Okay, rectum as well as a part of colon fails to develop, due to which there will be accumulation of feces in the colon following birth. So this is usually about the definition of Hirschsprung's disease, which is also known as congenital aganglionic megacolon. Okay, it is also known as congenital aganglionic megacolon, in which rectum and the part of colon is, in which a rectum as well as a part of colon is not developed normally. Okay, it is not developed normally. So due to which there will be accumulation of feces in the colon following birth. So next we will see what are the causes of this disease. So causes, it is mainly due to the embryonic failure. Okay, it is mainly due to embryonic failure of the migration of the hindgut ganglion cells. Okay, it is the embryonic failure of migration of the hindgut ganglion cells to most caudal portion of the GI tract. Okay, the most caudal portion of the GI tract. So that is the rectum. Okay, that is usually the rectum. So that is, it is mainly due to embryonic failure of the migration of the hindgut ganglionic cells to the caudal portion of the GI tract, that is the rectum. So that is usually first, it is mainly due to embryonic failure. Okay, it is mainly due to embryonic failure. So next, it usually occurs 1 in 5,000 live birth. Okay, this disease usually occurs 1 in 5,000 live birth. With male to female ratio, it is 4:1. Okay, with male to female ratio, it is 4:1. So that is usually about this thing. So normally what is the main cause of this? It is due to embryonic failure. Okay, the main cause, it is embryonic failure. That is due to migration of the where it is failure of migration of the hindgut ganglionic cells to the caudal portion of the GI tract. Okay, to the caudal portion of the GI tract. So that is mainly the rectum. So this usually occurs 1 in 5,000 live birth. Okay, this usually occurs 1 in 5,000 birth. 1:5,000 live birth, and the male to female ratio, it is 4:1. Okay, the male to female ratio, it is 4:1. So that is usually about this thing. So and this is what is this Hirschsprung's disease. It is nothing but where there will be where the rectum and the part of colon fails to develop normally. That usually leads to accumulation of feces in the colon after birth. So that causes, it is mainly due to embryonic failure of the embryonic failure, where embryonic failure of migration of hindgut ganglion cells to the caudal portion of the GI tract, that is rectum. So that is usually about this causes of Hirschsprung's disease. So next is symptoms. So we'll see what are the symptoms that is usually seen. So symptoms varies depending upon the age of the child. Okay, symptoms usually varies depending upon the age of the child. So that is usually, we'll see what are the symptoms depending upon their age. So when we talk about this neonate, okay, in case of neonates, if this does occur, okay, in neonate, if this disease occurs, so there will be a failure to pass meconium within 24 to 48 hours. Okay, if this disease is present in neonate, so the meconium will be not pass. The meconium will not pass. Okay, so the meconium will not pass. So meconium is nothing but the first stool that the baby passes after the birth. Okay, the first stool that the baby passes after the birth. So that is the meconium. So in this usually what happens, the baby will not be able to pass this meconium within 24 to 48 hours. Okay, within 24 to 48 hours. So that is usually there. And next they will be refusing to feed. Okay, they will not be having interest to feed. Okay, they will not be able to feed, so they will be refusing. So they will be refusing to take breast milk. Okay, they will be refusing to take breast milk. So that is usually there. And also they will be having abdominal distension. Okay, they will be having abdominal distension. So that is usually what happen. In case the clinical symptoms usually varies depending upon the age. Okay, it usually varies depending upon the age. So first is like neonate. In case of neonate, they will not be able to pass meconium within 24 to 48 hours, and then they will be refusing to take breast milk. Abdominal distension will be present. And in case of infants, okay, in case of infants, so they will be having inadequate inadequate weight gain. Okay, so they will be having inadequate weight gain. Constipation will be there, abdominal distension will be there, episodes of diarrhea and vomiting, because they will be having episodes of diarrhea and vomiting, fever, lethargy, as well as enterocolitis will also be there. Okay, enterocolitis can also be seen. In this usually bloody diarrhea. Okay, when they are having diarrhea, so blood will be using out. So that is usually about this symptoms that is seen in case of infants. What are the symptoms that is usually seen in infants? It is nothing but inadequate weight gain, constipation, abdominal distension, diarrhea, bloody diarrhea with and also vomiting, and also they will be having lethargy, fever, enterocolitis also will be seen. So next, in case of children. So in case of children, symptoms become chronic. Okay, symptoms become chronic, which includes constipation, passage of ribbon-like foul-smelling stools. Okay, passage of ribbon-like foul-smelling stool, and also abdominal distension will be there. And also abdominal distension will be there. So that is usually about this symptoms that is usually seen in case of Hirschsprung's disease. So in this disease, symptoms usually varies according to the age. Okay, it usually varies according to the age. So the symptoms that is usually seen is that it is divided into neonate, infant, and children. In case of infant, you can see that they will not be able to pass meconium. They will not be. They will refuse to have breast milk, and abdominal distension will be there. Whereas in infants, so constipation will be there, diarrhea will be there, vomiting will be there, abdominal distension will be there, as well as they will be having inadequate weight gain, and also they will be having enterocolitis. And next is usually seen is that in case of children, the symptoms usually becomes chronic. So they will be having constipation, and they will pass ribbon-like foul smell stools, as well as abdominal distension will be there. So these are usually the symptoms that is usually seen in case of Hirschsprung's disease. So next is diagnostic evaluation. So what are the diagnostic tests that we have to do? It is mainly rectal examination. So we have to go with rectal examination. So this is mainly seen in this rectal examination should be done. Then barium enema examination is done. Okay, rectal examination is done mainly to check out the internal sphincter. Okay, it is mainly to check internal sphincter, whether there is absence of stool or whether stool is present. So that is mainly we go with in rectal examination, we go with examining the internal sphincter, whether fecal matter is present or not. So that usually we will be checking out. Then we will go with barium enema. Okay, then we will go with barium enema. So this usually shows the barium enema. This usually shows the size of abrupt size of the colon. Okay, this usually shows the abrupt size of the colon. So that is usually done. So next we have to go with rectal biopsy. Okay, the next thing that we go with it is rectal biopsy. Okay, so this is usually about this diagnostic evaluation. So mainly we go with rectal examination, barium enema, and rectal biopsy. So this is about this diagnostic test that we should do. So next is medical management. So what is done in this medical management? So mainly we go with enema. Okay, we have to go with repeated enema so that we can remove the fecal matter that has been deposited in the colon area. So that is, we have to remove the fecal matter. So therefore we have to go with repeated enema. Then we can go with giving them stool softeners. Okay, we can go with giving them stool softeners. So that is usually done. Then fluid and electrolyte balance should be maintained. So this is done mainly to improve nutritional status. Okay, fluid and electrolyte balance should be maintained. This is done mainly to improve nutritional status. So that is usually. Then we have to go with. Then we can go with temporary colostomy. Okay, we have to go with temporary colostomy. So this is created at least 10 cm proximal to the transition zone of the aganglionic segment. So that is mainly we have to go with temporary colostomy. This is done 10 cm proximal to the aganglionic transition zone of aganglionic segment. This is done mainly to avoid obstruction, to relieve obstruction. So that is usually done. This is about this management, that is medical management that we go. Medical management, mainly we go with stool softener will be given, enema, repeated enema should be given. Then we go with fluid and electrolyte balance will be maintained. Then we go with temporary colostomy, that is should be done about 10 centimeter, at least 10 centimeter proximal to the transition zone of the aganglionic segment. This is done to relieve obstruction. So this is about this medical management. When we talk about surgical management, so mainly we have to go with end-to-end anastomosis. Okay, we have to go with end-to-end anastomosis so that we can connect a link between rectum and the proximal segment. So that we can connect a link between rectum and the proximal segment. So that is usually about this surgical management. So this is about this management of Hirschsprung's disease. So mainly we go with medical management and surgical management. So when we talk about this medical management, we go with giving them stool softeners as well as repeated enema it's given, and then we go with maintaining fluid and electrolyte balance. Then temporary colostomy will be done. In case of surgical management, we have to just recorrect the aganglionic segment. So therefore we go with doing end-to-end anastomosis where a connection will be made with the rectum and the proximal segment. So this is about this Hirschsprung's disease. Hirschsprung's disease is nothing but a disease in which rectum and the colon it is not formed properly normally, due to which fecal will be impacted in the colon area after birth. And this is also known as congenital aganglionic megacolon. The main causative factor for this, it is mainly due to embryonic failure of migration of the hind gut ganglionic to the caudal portion of the GI tract, that is the rectum. So that is usually about this thing. Symptoms you can see like it is different from different age group, like infants, neonates and children. So mainly they have abdominal distension will be the diarrhea will be there, constipation will be there. So this is usually the symptoms that is usually seen. Diagnostic we go with rectal examination, rectal biopsy, and also we go with barium enema. Management I've already done, fluid and electrolyte should be maintained. Then we have to go with stool softener, repeated enema. Then we go with temporary colostomy, and surgical management we go with end-to-end anastomosis. Okay, we go with end-to-end anastomosis. So this is about this Hirschsprung's disease. Okay, this is usually about this Hirschsprung's disease.